All right. So my good friends at Magnetar, who are also behind Arvolution, etc., they sent me a care package with this album from Roxy Music, Avalon. They also sent me Fleetwood Mac, Captain Fantastic and the Brown Deer Cowboy by Elton John, The Night Fly by Donald Fagen, Brothers in Arms by Dire Straits, and Moving Pictures by Rush. Now, these aren't just your typical CD albums. No, my friends. A few of these are DVD audio, and a few of these are SACD. They are all 5.1 multi-channel mixes. So obviously right before making this video, I took a ride down old school cool street, listening to all these old albums, but mixed in such a way that it's just uncomparable. So let's talk about it. All right, so I know streaming is all the rage right now. It is so convenient. You can have it on your phone, which is super easy, on the go, wherever you are. You can have your favorite tunes. You can make playlists of anything you want. It's all right there, right at your fingertips. I get it. I myself take advantage of that ease of use daily. But still, having a physical copy of music is just better. What was really nice about my friends at Magnetar is that not only did they send me those discs on loan, I do not get to keep those discs, I have to send them back, but they also sent me some notes, like for example, the Rush Moving Pictures album. They said, obviously listen to Tom Sawyer, duh, but also to listen to Vital Signs, which is the last song on the album, because there are tons of surround sound effects just kind of flying all over the soundstage. Although to be honest, Rush was literally the last album that I listened to, because I was really looking forward to this one in particular, because I'm a fan of Rush and I'm a fan of just their musicality and just the fact that they don't care about being rock stars, they just care about being music nerds, you know? Unorthodox time signatures and just really pushing the limits of what musicians can do and perform. And was I impressed with this album in 5.1 surround sound? Of course. But honestly, some of the other albums shined way more. And that's saying something, because we're talking about Rush here. Just a couple of the highlights to go over. The Roxy Music Avalon album pretty much just said go through the first four. The most well-known song that they have is called Avalon, which I am very familiar with, having listened to them on the radio, growing up in the 90s and stuff. But gosh, I'll try and explain this. I mean, I've explained this before in videos past about streaming versus physical media when it comes to movies, because this is honestly my first time listening to DVD audio in SACD in multi-channel. And it's the same. It's the same, streaming versus physical media. You get higher fidelity, more data going over that HDMI cable. Every little nuance, every little fine detail comes out. Because people who are all jacked up about hi-fi, stereo, that can be a truly expensive hobby to have. If you're chasing that extreme high fidelity, extremely expensive speakers, extremely expensive preamps and amps, what are you chasing? You are chasing fidelity to basically make it sound like either you're in the mixing studio with the engineers or you are literally hearing them live. That's what you're chasing. You're not just hearing some digital representation or reproduction of music that's playing through speakers. You are chasing as if you are there, as if you are hearing it in person, right? That's the dream. That's what people spend ridiculous amounts of money for if they're really, really into the hi-fi hobby, right? But goodness, it sure does get close. I mean, yes, I've got the Magnetar DVD player feeding into my Marantz SR7015, which is being powered by my Aperion audio energy amps, which is then powering the Verus speakers the Verus V8T concert towers and the Verus center channel and the Verus bookshelf speakers over here. Everything is Verus. Everything is 8-inch woofers and the same tweeters. And the whole Verus line from Aperion Audio is made for music, honestly, number one. Yes, it does a really good job when I'm also listening to movies, but there's a reason the V8T towers are called the concert towers, because playing high fidelity music is just where they shine. So I'm very glad that I have the Verus speakers in this theater right now, as opposed to, say, the Aperion Audio Theatrus line that is definitely made for movie watching. So I love this hybrid setup that I have right now where I can listen to music or movies and it sounds fantastic. So going over some more highlights, Dire Straits, Brothers in Arms, Money for Nothing, that ain't working, that's the way you do it, money for nothing and the chicks for free. You know that one. But I will say, truth be told, that didn't age well because that particular song uses the F word quite a bit. And not the F word you're thinking about, the other F word that is derogatory towards the LGBTQ community. It's kind of bittersweet listening to that song in its entirety because the radio version that you can hear right now omits the F word entirely. You don't hear it at all. So yes, while Money for Nothing sounded incredible in 5.1 DVD audio, yeah, just word to the wise, it in 2024 didn't age very well with the lyrics. But man, just the whole intro, you know, I want my MTV. How it's just kind of floating around, reverb tails just trailing off. And then when the drums come in, those go all around you in the entire soundstage. And then when the initial guitar comes in, goodness, it's like I'm hearing it in the studio. It's like I'm there in that little studio where the guitar amp was. And it's like I could literally hear the sound of the guitar coming out of the amp. Just those details you just don't get with streaming or listening on the radio. I know not everybody is going to care to have that level of detail, but when you do hear it, it is transformative. It is on another level. And I get it. I get how people who have heard it with that level of detail, it's like being on a new drug and you just want to chase that high from then on. So I get it how people want to spend thousands and thousands of dollars to get that high again. Say if they, you know, heard a demo or something at a friend's house or maybe some sort of high-end studio or something where they've got just thousands and thousands of dollars of equipment playing through these master tracks or something. It makes sense. Once you hear it in person, you don't want to go back to anything less. But another song on that Dire Straits album was Why Worry? And again, it's just the fine details are out of this world. Nothing beats physical media still. Even the stuff that I've heard through Apple Music that's considered high-res lossless, it's darn close. But there's just something about the snap and the transient response of these speakers when you have all the data there, when you have all the ones and zeros, nothing is compressed, everything is there out in the open. You know, when the toms hit, or even the snap of a snare drum, the sizzle of a cymbal. There were times when I'm listening through these albums where I'm just taken aback, like, you know, something's kind of playing fairly low or quietly, and then toms come in, or a snare drum hits, or even just a keyboard suddenly starts to play. Just that reaction time, just the instant transient response that jumps out at you. You just don't get that with streaming. The dynamics between the quiet parts and the loud parts, the headroom that you get having uncompressed audio is unmatched. Fleetwood Mac, Rhiannon, of course, and Over My Head, Warm Ways. Rhiannon especially. That's personally the one I know the most from the radio. When I hear the name Fleetwood Mac, my brain just automatically goes to Rhiannon. So I definitely listened to that one very carefully. But just the harmonies, the way in which the instruments were engineered, just the buttery richness of the guitars and the drum kit especially, and the clarity of the voices, and voices coming from the sides and then from the front soundstage as well. Just incredible. Elton John, Captain Fantastic and the Brown Dirt Cowboy. The very first track is the title track of the album. The notes I have on this piece of paper, the way the opening track builds up with guitars coming in for the second verse in stereo in the rears and parts being added the entire time. Totally true. The song starts off so well, but then it just keeps building and building and building, and more instruments keep being added and added and added. And goodness, because when you have 5 speakers and not just a stereo image, you've got more room. You've got more room to place things in the center and in the surrounds. So everything has its own little pocket, even more so than if it's just a stereo track. And when you add more and more and more instruments, they have room to breathe. They are given their own unique space in the soundstage. And man, it just came through so clearly. And again, such dynamics. When the additional instruments did come in, they came in with such impact. And because of its time with this Elton John album, you know, there's a lot of organ, and those, that just adds so much body and thickness to the overall mix. Someone Saved My Life, Tonight, and Riding were 2 other tracks that were suggested. And as I was skipping through, I still had to kind of stop and listen to at least the first few minutes of some of the other tracks too, because I sound like a broken record already. It's just, it's just incredible. I knew I would like SACD and DVD audio, but I wasn't prepared to hear what I heard. So again, this is just something I'm gonna have to chase from now on. So thanks, people of Magnetar, my new best friends. And lastly, I want to talk about Donald Fagen. Am I saying that right? Fagen? He was first a part of Steely Dan until he did this solo album, The Nightfly. And a couple of the tracks that were suggested were IGY and New Frontier. But I just ended up listening to the entire album because, goodness, the Nightfly album as a whole, it just seems like one of the most meticulously engineered albums I've ever heard. Everything about it, every instrument seemed just carefully crafted, carefully recorded to its absolute best possibility. The microphones they must have used, the distance the microphones were from the instruments, from the vocals, from the backup vocals. The entire album has incredibly complex harmonies with the vocals. And just the way they're mixed, there were so many times where the backup vocals came in and it sounded like it was in my head, like they were mixed binaurally or something. Possibly because they were coming out of just the surrounds and they're directly to my sides. Maybe that gave it like the headphone effect. But even the chord progressions are very like jazz oriented, very complex, going in and out of different keys throughout each song. But out of all the albums that I was given on loan, I think The Nightfly was the standout. Not only did it sound just so incredibly engineered and mastered, but again, it sounded like I was there. It sounded like I could hear the subtle nuances of the guitar amp that it was coming out of, that the microphone had been recording. It was like I was there in the studio. Just the richness of the vocals cutting through so effortlessly. I mean, yeah, I can't really say anything else besides it's just superior, hands down. I know it's convenient to stream everything. I know it's not necessary to chase this high fidelity dream or this experience. It's not for everyone, but once you hear it, you kind of just get this taste for it that you want to continue to taste from then on. Yeah, I mean, it's like a drug. It really is. You always want to be chasing that high. Thank you again to my friends at Magnetar. I never had listened to DVD audio or SACD before, and now I have, and now it's the only way I want to listen to music. Because it really does open up the soundstage and gives all the instruments more room to breathe than if it's just playing out of 2 speakers. So yeah, that about wraps it up. I mean, I can't really say much more because I just keep saying the same things over and over again. Nothing touches it. I don't know if streaming ever will, especially when you have a DVD player like the Magnetar UDP900 and its high-end components feeding into a system that is very expensive with very expensive tower speakers and other speakers surrounding me. I'm not gloating at all. I'm just saying that I am very fortunate to have had this opportunity to have this complete setup. Again, most of this equipment is on long-term loan. I don't technically own any of this. I hope I can express that to you, that if I had the money, I would definitely try and chase this hi-fi dream or this surround sound dream. So if you have a friend who's got a really expensive hi-fi system, or if you have a chance to go to a studio or perhaps like an expo or something like M-Wave or Cedia or CES or something, I really encourage you to do that, because then you're going to hear a level of detail that you probably won't be able to hear otherwise. That's the true magic of going to expos like that. Kind of like going to an IMAX movie theater. I don't have a screen that's that big, nor will I ever. So yeah, that's the beauty of going out there and living through those experiences. So if you want to take away anything from this video, it is chase the dream. If you don't know what true high fidelity music sounds like, see if there's a nearby expo, or see if there's a nearby studio or high-end boutique something. So you can just hear things in a level of detail that they were basically mastered in or recorded in. Or hear something as if you were at a concert. Because that's the reason we all go to concerts, right? To hear it in a way that we wouldn't at home. Anyway, that's it. Okay, I'll stop now. I'm just gonna keep gushing over and over and over. So now it's your turn. Do you have a ridiculously expensive hi-fi stereo system? Or do you have the means to listen to DVD audio or SACDs? Not all Blu-ray players or 4K Blu-ray players can play SACDs, so just be aware of that. But are you like me now and wanting to get older albums like this that have been meticulously mixed in 5.1 surround? Because it's an old saying, but they don't make them like they used to. Everything is about convenience and just getting it out as quick as possible to the masses. But when you just sit down and take your time to mix it with these brilliant engineers who remix these albums later on in 5.1 surround, it just can't be beat. All right, with that being said, this world is crazy as it is, so it only makes sense to be kind to one another out there. Don't just listen to music, seek out the best possible version you can. And of course, always be listening.